Let's take a look at the Amazon Basics cable. Now, typically we'd start a video like this looking at the specs that the manufacturer publishes. Unfortunately, Amazon only publishes size and weight. That's not super relevant to making a decision about a microphone cable. So we cut open a cable here and we're going to walk through all the different features and specs that we can find and show you what you should or should not consider. And at the end, we'll give you a recommendation as to whether or not this is a cable that you should be spending your money on for your project. Now, first of all, in terms of price for this Amazon Basics XLR cable and everything else that you see here, we do have links down in the description. But generally speaking, this is one of the most, if not the most, inexpensive microphone cable that you can buy. For a lot of reasons, they have a lot of buying power, a lot of volume, all that type of stuff. They've made some smart decisions on the quality and the features that they've included in the cable. And now we're going to take a look at whether or not they've trimmed too many corners or whether or not this cable would work well for you. Next, in terms of color, I prefer having color options for my cables, especially in the studio where I'm doing a lot of patching on my desk. Having colored cables allows you to troubleshoot faster and keep track of stuff. Obviously, for long runs, I always prefer black cables. Amazon Basics does not offer any option other than black for their Amazon Basics microphone cable. In terms of cable lengths, there are a variety of lengths available on Amazon. They do not sell this cable bulk, so you can't buy a 500 or 1,000 foot roll of the cable. If you are somebody that wants to solder your own connectors and make your own cables in bulk, that's not an option here. But at the price, there really isn't much cost savings to be had by making your own cable. This is so inexpensive that I think you're better off just buying the finished manufactured cables from Amazon if that's what you want to do with this cable spec. Next, this cable is extremely flexible. I think it is one of, if not the most flexible cable that we have in our inventory. This makes it really easy to work with. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why this cable is so flexible, some of the choices that they've made on the inside of the cable, but just know that this is really easy to work with, easy to wrap, easy to lay, and easy to organize. So it's a great cable in terms of flexibility. Next, let's take a look at the conductors inside this cable. You can see here that this is a twisted pair or a two conductor design. This is in contrast to a cable like this that I'm bringing in now, where it's a star quad design where there's 4 conductors inside of it. To sum it up, a twisted pair is a more traditional design of an XLR cable. How this works is basically 2 copies of your audio will run from the microphone to the audio mixer. One of those copies on the second wire will be phase inverted. And when it gets to your audio mixer or audio interface, that phase is realigned, and that process is supposed to cancel out any noise that is picked up on the microphone cable. This works really well for a long run or in environments where you don't have a lot of electromagnetic interference, especially if you're at live events or something like that. EMI is not a big issue, so you can get away with a more inexpensive cable in those environments as long as the other components are okay and workable as well. A twisted pair copper design like this is by far the most popular design for XLR microphone cables. Next, in terms of shielding on the cable, you can see here that there's a copper spiral. We pulled back the PVC layer, so on the outside you have this PVC layer, and then inside there's a copper spiral. Again, Amazon does not publish any specs on this, but we can see that it's somewhere similar to other cables that are claiming between 90 and 100% copper coverage. Now, just to show you a different option here, you can see here that the Amazon Basics has a one-way copper spiral that just wraps down the cable. Beside it here, I have a tin-plated copper, so it has a silver design, and this has a two-way braid. So this is like a basket weave, so it holds the shielding in a little bit tighter. Now, the benefits of the way that the Amazon Basics cable is done with that one-way copper spiral is that allows for a much more flexible cable. The downside of this design is if you do bend this cable really aggressively, it will shift some of that copper on the spiral and it will never recover or reset to where it was before. If you have a braided shield, like the cable here beside it, this will be a much stiffer cable, but when you straighten it out again, the two-way braid is more likely to recover and put everything back the way it's supposed to be. So you can expect that over a long period of time, this Amazon Basics cable will degrade and the shielding will break down over time as little bits get exposed through it. You can see on the back of the cable here, that you can see the cotton yarn inside where it has separated already. This is pretty common with that one-way copper spiral, and it's something that you need to look out for when you're doing proper cable wrapping and that type of thing. Next, let's take a look at the end of the cable here. You can see that we pulled that shielding in and twisted it together. This would get soldered to the connector as a ground. Inside that, there's several strands of cotton yarn here. What this is doing, this is buffering the two copper cores that are inside these PVC layers as well. This prevents friction inside the cable from wearing down that PVC layer on the inside, because if the copper inside these two strands here were ever to touch, that's when you would get shorting and the cable would now be considered not usable. So that's the role of the cotton yarn, is just to provide buffer there and make sure that the cable always stays nice and round. Next, let's talk about the two XLR connectors. I would say that these are medium to low quality. There are a lot of reports online of these not fitting every device. We haven't had that experience here, but it is quite prevalent if you go to read the Amazon reviews. So do be careful. Some people do complain that the spec is slightly out and some of their equipment cannot connect properly. That's something to look out for. Again, this is on the budget end. It's silver and silver. I always prefer to use black XLR connectors. You can see here with this Amazon Basics cable, it goes black to silver to black. I hate that. I'd prefer if it's always all black. And then in terms of the actual pins itself, the pins here are silver. If they were gold, they would be a little bit more corrosion resistant and be likely to last a longer period of time. These are just a little bit more inexpensive, cheaper to make, but they will offer good connectivity for you as well. Let's take a look at the inside of these. I'm going to pull back the boot of the cable. As we pull this out, you can see how the strain relief works. There's basically 5 or 6 pieces around this cable that help prevent the cable from over flexing there. We can pull back that shield. And here you can see how the cable is actually put together. So here you see there is solder on that copper shield that goes to one of the pins. On the back side, the other 2 copper wires get soldered on. You can see here that it is a bit nicer than some budget cables. They do have this shrink wrap around all the connections to prevent a short or something like that. So that is a nice quality option, especially at this price point. You don't always find something like that at this price point on a cable. Other than that, it's pretty basic. I don't see anything here to be worried about too much, just plastic and stuff like that. But it's not the highest. It's not a Neutrik connector here, but I think for a budget cable, it's all suitable and it all is on par for what I would expect at this price point. In terms of application, they do recommend that you can use this in studio or live sound. I would say in a live sound environment, you'd be happier with this cable just because of the twisted pair design and some of the components that we've seen so far. I think in a studio, you might, like maybe 10% of users would have issues with buzzing and electromagnetic noise. It definitely won't affect everyone. I think 90% of people that buy this cable will be absolutely happy no matter what. But if you do have a lot of things like guitar amps with big magnets, a lot of speakers, computers, monitors, wireless chargers for your phone, power bars, all that type of stuff, if you have all of that on your desk and you're trying to get away with an Amazon Basics cable, I'd be willing to bet that you would start to experience some issues with a setup like that. But if your cables are all spread out and away from things like power and lighting, you'll probably be much more happy with your setup. So what is our overall recommendation for this cable? When it comes to recommendations, I like to back out a little bit and take a look at scope of the equipment that you're dealing with. If you're brand new to audio and you're just trying to stitch things together so you can record your first podcast or your first live stream, this is a great cable. Chances are, if you have any issues with this cable, you can afford the downtime when you go to ship it back to Amazon and wait for a replacement and you're not too worried. That being said, if you're somebody that is going with $1,000 setup, you have a Shure SM7B, an expensive audio interface, maybe a Go XLR, you have a cloud lifter, you're spending this money on so much other stuff, I'm going to be willing to bet that you'd be much happier with a cable that is known to be more reliable than the Amazon Basics one. If somebody is paying you to work, if you're on location, if you're doing a live gig, don't get embarrassed from an inexpensive cable failing and making you look bad. In those environments, every dollar that you spend on cable is worth it and will make you look better and you will have more reliability in those gigs. So to sum it up, if you're low on budget, this is a great cable to get you started. If somebody's paying you to work and you need 100% reliability, this is probably not the cable for you. You'd be better off with a better cable design. We do have a cable buyer's guide linked down in the description below where we talk about what to look for with cables and why we recommend other cables higher than the Amazon Basics cable. So if you are in a pro environment and you need better reliability, do check that guide out. Other than that, if you have any other questions about anything that we've covered, please leave a comment down in the comment section below. Again, we have links for current pricing for everything here down in the description below. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.